Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogbot333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, the New Order Last Days of Europe as the United Kingdom. New Order of the Ruin, whatever it is right now. Welcome back to it. Do we? Oh, no. The Germans own the Channel Islands. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, welcome back. Now, last time, we passed the National Security Act. Well, we finalized passing it. And now we have a bit of a problem. Our party is fucking tearing itself apart at the seams. So we gotta figure out how to stop that from happening. But before we do that, I wanted to take a chance to step back a bit and take a look at some of the little localization that we have. Why not start with London itself? I think I did this last time with Guangdong, so why not? As the 18th century came to an end, Samuel Johnson said that if man is tired of London, he is tired of life, for there is in London all that life can afford. It felt like that for a century and a half after that, too. The Industrial Revolution and all its innovations, the underground, the tea shops and new landmarks, the fact that London was a financial center of the world and of an empire on which the sun never set. The Blitz came and the people of London suffered terribly. More than 30,000 were slain, large tracts of housing were ruined, people had fled in droves to the countryside and beyond. Had that been all that happened, London would have bound back. But the Hitlerites had more in store for the prime city of Britain. The capital of the United Kingdom fell to Germany after a long and bloody siege by Wehrmacht forces. Fighting in the outer boroughs had an intensity not seen since that of the Eastern Front. The city centre, however, was largely spared after Germany accepted its surrender, but the scars of the war still remain. There are many nights when the bars, which even in the 30s were once full of Whitehall careerists and other sort of merrymakers, fall silent, and the scent and sound of a city in decay slowly begin to overwhelm the senses. Unfortunate. Well, we got that little bit of world building figured out. Now let's look at our problems. It seems that there is precious little that the BBP can agree on with itself on, in both the Commons and the Lords. There are factions that decry the returned powers granted the peers following the war, while some seek to grant them even more. Some see the German garrison as a threat to national sovereignty, while others wish to work even closer to them. There are even some divisions of the party that question our very commitment to fascism itself. But regardless, we cannot let these issues divide us, for there is one thing we all wish to see: a strong, stable, modern Britain. And that is something that can only be achieved by a strong, stable party. For the sake of our nation, we must pull ourselves together and carry on. Insufficient resources, really. Geoffrey Ham sat alone in his office, working for what seemed like hours upon hours on legislation for the new state of Britain. He didn't seem to know his passage of time, the world around him, and he didn't seem to mind it. For him, the only solution lay in the past, in the face of the great martyr of fascism, Oswald Mosley, shot by the cowardly and treasonous government as the Germans made landfall. They thought his death would snuff out the fire he lighted long ago, but to their dismay, the fire grew and engulfed them, purging Britain of its rotten democracy and the parasites which subsisted on it. Flipping over another page, Geoffrey let his thoughts subside for a moment. It was true, fascism had finally come to Britain, and had come quicker than he expected, yet he still couldn't see the people in charge as anything other than opportunistic hawks, unable to do anything but steer his nation to fruitless paths. It was no coincidence to him that, as the government strayed even further from Mosley's vision, the more problems seemed to arise. But hope was not lost, as Ham knew that the only way for orthodoxy restored, and that was through Andrew Fontaine, the charismatic rising ideologue among a party of conservative leftovers and indecisive moderates. Through him, he could finally implement his uncompromised vision. He allowed himself a moment to rest and looked up to gaze at his modest office. Above the door leading to the rest of the building, there was a hanging portrait of Oswald Mosley. Geoffrey allowed himself to drift, looking at the ageless features and the immaculate suit on his martyred leader. In a few moments, he was back in the packed halls where Mosley would give his grand speeches. He remembered how the crowds would roar and hang from his every word, how through only gesture and tongue he would command the crowd like Neptune commanded the sea. But those halls were empty now, and the voices had long since stopped echoing. To him there was no life before the BUF, and now that the party had long been disbanded and kept to the annals of history, there's little to do but keep the flame alive so that it may one day light up the whole world. Don't worry, old friend. I'll finish what you started. That reminds me of, wasn't it in the old TNO lore that Oswald Mosley escaped with the Allies and the monarchy to Canada? I might be mistaken there, but I think that's part of the old lore. And if that is part of the old lore, thank God the old lore is gone. Thank God for that. Yeah. The will of a people is inimical to the development of a strong, nationally coherent society. It is important that the government and the state exercise a necessary guiding hand, so that the revolutionary spirit is directed towards a positive end. John Bean scrutinized the passage carefully. His newest book was a masterpiece, if he said so himself, a manifesto for the new Britain that he would come to see be. That said, even the Koh-i-Noor diamond had to be cut before it reached its true potential. Looking over the term revolutionary spirit, his eyebrows shot up. The entire paragraph could possibly be misconstrued as pro-Bolshevism, being cursed for curs for soiling the spirit of common man before crossing that sentence out. Though the will of the people is inimical to the development of a strong, nationally coherent society, it is important that the government and the state exercise a necessary guiding hand, so that the revolutionary spirit is directed away from the Judeo-Bolshevik corruption towards an end that will benefit the nation. The benefit of the nation itself. He nodded to himself, satisfied. The words rang much truer now. A strong, nationally coherent society, Britain could only half claim to be. Domville had done a decent enough job keeping the nation from collapsing altogether. That much was true. But he was no real fascist. He was an old, tired, boring man who wanted to make way for a newer generation of leaders. Like Andrew Fontaine, for instance. Fontaine was a man Bean could respect. Strong, driven, dynamic, everything that the opposing rabble was not. When the man inevitably took power, Bean knew he had to be by his side. A Britain entirely free of its chains. Now wouldn't that be glorious? But alas, that would be the future. Bean snapped himself out of his daydream and continued to scan the manuscript, determined that one day it would be treated as one of a text for defining the new Britain. The scribe toils, desperate to be seen. We're getting the whole lore rundown about all the possible paths, aren't we? And Emma did not know if her father knew his bar was being used as a meeting place for members of resistance or not. She'd like to think that if he knew that he'd be supportive of it, in the same way she privately hoped that her parents would support her and Elizabeth's relationship if they were ever caught. That was an issue for another day, however. Today she would need to convince old Bill that she and Elizabeth had what it took to join the resistance. Old Bill was a spitting image of what one imagines when seeing a grizzled war veteran. Wrinkled and liver-spotted, thinning white hair, and a stormy look on his face. The man smoked his pipe, sitting across from the couple, moments on his past. So, what makes two lovely ladies such as yourself want to join up? It's not really a British accent, but we'll go with it. I'm not really doing a British accent with any of these accents anyway. Well, let's be real. But Emma cocked an eyebrow. I told you last time we spoke. I hate Domville and all his cronies, and so does my friend here. Then I should perhaps rephrase. Why, young lady, would you want to join? He said, gesturing a pipe at Elizabeth. She gulped before collecting herself. I want a better future. For me and for Emma here. If that means having to go up to Downing Street and kicking Domville in the knob myself, then so be it. Emma's eyes widened slightly as Bill laughed. You've got spirit, girl. I like that. All right, then. If you both want in, then who might object, eh? He extended his hand, and the two girls both shook it in turn. Now, sometimes we meet here, sometimes we meet in the old silk mill uptown. We aren't the only cell in Worcestershire, nor even the most important one, so don't expect to give it to Downing Street right away. What you'll be doing is small-scale stuff, enough to disrupt things. Meet me here this time next week so I can show you where to go. Is that clear? The couple nodded dutifully. Bill gave a crinkled smile. Welcome to the resistance, ladies. Now that sounds like a an accent my old roommate would do. It's not remotely serious, but oh well. To be the man who ruled the United Kingdom, one must accrue the support of the many key institutions that hold the nation together. There are two of these groups that are the most influential in answering the question of who governs Britain: the rank-and-file members of the British People's Party and the aristocrats and peers who sit within the House of Lords. The party membership is a widely diverse group, as BPP is the only legal political party. It is where every up-and-coming bureaucrat, businessman, lawyer, and aspiring politician throw their lot. Indeed, this tendency of using the party simply as to advance one's own career is an issue that the more ideologically minded amongst the leadership find to be a concerning trend. Nonetheless, as a mass party, winning the support of the membership requires the use of an age-old tactics that can be deployed against any large group with differing ideals, something to unify them. Perhaps the upcoming BPP conference, an aspiring candidate for future leadership could sway the membership to their side. The other much more difficult member to win the support of is the House of Lords. While their mostly aristocratic upper chamber had started to become politically relevant at the beginning of the century, the powers returned to them by the Germans through reversing these reforms and made them yet again an important force in British politics. If one lacks the support of the peers, then it is unlikely that he will get very far. Their support is needed within any government. This means that to win them over, a prospective candidate must attend to their many needs. A house of cards if there ever was one. Well, we don't have to worry about that quite yet. It is dumping rain outside, goddamn. Which is not good, because I work at a ski resort, and according to the weather, it is raining where the ski resort is. That's not going to be good, because we don't have that much snow. And rain is not a good mix. It's not good if you want the snow to remain, if there's rain. Was that English? I do not think that was English. I apologize. I got off of work 3 or 4 hours ago. I'm drained mentally. The fact that I'm coherent right now, well, mostly coherent, let's not forget the last minute or so, is impressive in and of itself. Well, our problem and their interest. In these times of turmoil, it's easy to forget just how much of a positive force Germany's been for the British people. Not only have they liberated us from the shackles of the old world and given us the opportunity to reforge Britain to our own image, they have aided us in our reconstruction, lifting us to be true equal powers in the pact. No more shall we be bogged down in the restraints of democracy and capitalism in the pursuit of fanning the flame of our empire anew. Not only that, our benefactors also given us the opportunity to be part of their strategic and economic alliance. It is only the least we can do to be able to support them in their efforts, both at home and abroad, in any way possible. With this, we shall prove we are not a liability, but instead their finest and loyal ally. Yeah, sure. Well, actually, we are committing to this, so we are actually going to stick with them, I suppose. Looking to see... Will this be Truro? Yeah, Truro, but that's not a VP. Oh, no, it is. Never mind. It just didn't pop up when I was that zoomed in, but that's okay. Is this going to be Dover? Then? Yep, it is Dover. Interesting. I'm going to need to scroll back up on this. There we go. Let's do a infantry kit. Why not? And let's get on with it. The left is in the spirit. Evenings in Parliament had a specific routine, one that was both tiring and frustrating. Members would flock to their seats, an unassuming MP would raise an issue, Fontaine and Butler's men would screech at each other for hours on end, often involving outright shoe-throwing, a vote would be held, and then everyone went home. This time, however, was not such an evening, and Brian knew it very well. For the past few months, the commander of the garrison, propped up by Germania, had been increasingly showing up on the Parliament's floor. Brian at first believed that this was due to the PM's asking for advice following the restructuring of armed forces, but with Commander Wolf appearing at a more consistent rate, the somber truth dawned upon him. Britain was nothing more than a glorified puppet of Germania in general, and the garrison in particular. The party may delude itself into thinking our relationship as that of two brotherly nations standing side by side in a new order, but the reality here is a shackled one. Not us, that is for sure. So I'm going to have to do... I think I'm going to stick to one of these paths and just go down it for the next video, and just, when that's done, do it for another video, or however long it takes. And then just continue and go on from there. I don't know if I want to quite deal with this quite yet. So let's do an old companion. The House of Lords is a fickle and often tedious beast for any Prime Minister to handle. Whilst the BBP undoubtedly dominate the upper house, they are still outnumbered by the mercurial crossbenchers, who have grown quite sour as of late. Thankfully, Prime Minister has an old friend perfectly suited to the task. Gerald Wallop, the Earl of Portsmouth, and Domville have been close friends since long before the war, championing the fascist cause in various lobby groups and societies. Since the war's end and the birth of New Britain, Lord Portsmouth has been a key member of the Bedford, Chesterton, and now Domville ministries, and has come to act as a deputy leader of Domville's own Old Guard faction. There is no better man to attend to the delicate task of ensuring the support of the Lords. I'm still trying to deceive. Do we want to hope he knows what he's doing? I don't know if that is right necessarily. What ideology is that guy? I don't pay enough attention to Australia. National liberalism. Okay. Interesting. Anywho. Oh. Feel a little sore there. Hold on. I gotta move a little bit slower. Anywho. What was I gonna talk about? I don't know what I was gonna talk about. You can tell that I'm tired. Domville remembered the first time he stepped into Germania. He was one of the younger ministers sent at the time, which was saying something, considering how old he was at the time, and vividly remember stepping off a plane and seeing the teeming masses, all cheering the newly built capital. The National Socialist vision now permanently etched upon the face of the earth in immutable rock, granite, and glass. He never truly bought into the idealistic side of things in that way, like some others in his party had, but he could understand where the crowd's joy came from. Constant propaganda tended to make one view the erection of a sprawling ideological monolith to the greatness of their own country as nothing but a good thing. But as Barry Domville put up his umbrella as he walked through the streets of Germania, the fire was gone. In its place was a heavy, stagnant blaze that filled the air. It was similar to the coming of a thunderstorm, he mused. There was something deeply wrong with the city that all the towering spires and grandiose monuments could never truly mask. Arriving at his destination, Domville shook off his umbrella and entered. There would be a few days of wining and dining with the German elite, and then it would be business. Briefly looking back out at an increasingly dark city, he suppressed a shudder. Hopefully this feeling was not a portent of things to come. The facade cracks. And I'm gonna have to... I was trying to come up with a clever way to end this video. I couldn't come up with it, so I'm just gonna leave it there. Thanks for always watching, though, gang. Like the video if you liked, dislike if you didn't, leaving comments or feedback down in the comments section below. And I read all the comments again. Appreciate any feedback you might have for me. Check my various links down in the description box below. And that's really about it for now, my friends. I thank you all for watching. My name has been Mr. Dogweb333, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye now.